boron, its health benefits, how it has very, very significant antiparasitic properties, and the safety of it. And also, I'm going to be sharing with you amazing updates from our wellness champions that are recovering from parasites, recovering from chronic disease caused by parasitic infestations. If we haven't met, my name is Pam Bartha. I'm the author of Become a Wellness Champion and the founder of Live Disease Free. And I thoroughly enjoy doing this research because this is what saved my life. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis over 35 years ago. By the grace of God, I learned early on that MS is a parasitic infestation. That's what's causing it. And so as I treated infections in the body, I was able to recover, and I've been able to live MS-free for over 35 years now. We've also had the amazing privilege to coach hundreds of people all over the world, helping them also to recover from chronic disease. And not just multiple sclerosis, but other chronic diseases also. And we continue to learn a lot. I continue to research. And today I want to bring to your attention a mineral. So it's natural and it's very, very cost effective. And it's incredibly helpful in our recovery from these parasitic infestations that cause all kinds of chronic diseases. So if you follow my work, you know that whenever this is true in science, that we know this, that whenever we have disease, chronic disease, then we have inflammation. Inflammation is always present. And by definition, the definition of inflammation is your immune system is fighting something. Its main job is to protect us from various types of infections. So our immune system is working really hard. And then I've shared with you on previous events just couple of weeks ago about how there's a lot more oxidative stress when we have chronic diseases. And our body uses oxygen to kill parasites. And that's what, whenever you think of, hear about free radicals or oxidative free radicals, think about oxygen species. So hydrogen peroxide, hydroxyl, and other oxygen species. So they're like little oxygen bombs that our immune system is using to kill off different types of infections, different types of parasites. We know that when we have chronic disease, we're really infested, and it's really challenging to treat these infections. Like some of the large worms can produce over 200,000 eggs in a day. Many of them, they produce larvae and eggs that just sit dormant inside our body. And then also they move into our tissues. So the very small parasites can move deep into our tissues and they hide under biofilms. So it takes strategy to recover from them in just a few weeks or months versus years. And so we need to use what we do in the Live Disease Free program is use a layering of therapies where we are not just focusing on, let's say, parasite drugs. They're not going to cure us. We know that for sure. But we have to use different types of treatments, all working together, having a synergistic effect, which will really treat more effectively. So our students do test well for parasite drugs. They also test well for antimicrobial herbs. We also use oxygen therapies, and I can't talk about my favorite one here because we'll get censored, but make sure that if you want to learn more about using oxygen to treat parasites, you can check it out on our website, livediseasefree.com. You'll find it there, also on Rumble. And then also there are certain minerals and certain elements. So today we're going to talk about boron. And what's so fascinating is that I've heard about this years ago, and there's lots of things that I hear about, right? And it's kind of like, okay, well, we'll just watch for this and see if it's going to be helpful or not and if it's safe. And then now I'm seeing all of these current studies like 2021, 2022, where they're really excited to use boron in antimalarial medications and how antibacterial and antifungal and anti-small parasite, the properties of boron and how it's so helpful for treating various infections. And I'm like, whoa. So basically there was information research on this years ago, but like so many other things disappear, right? And I've shared so many different instances of that. So the link between MS and Lyme disease, Borrelia, it's over 100 years of studies that just just got dropped. And then also we talked about a malaria babesia type infection in multiple sclerosis and how that research just got dropped. And again, over 100 years of research, many peer-reviewed studies, and it just disappeared. Like, it's almost like the mid 1960s, something happened and we switched to autoimmune focus versus looking for infections. We won't talk about that here, but basically that was, I believe, an agenda, because it's a lot more profitable to suppress our immune system for the rest of our life than to treat parasites and let us become healthy and strong and lose a customer. So with boron, it's really fascinating because there's this study, I should say not a study, there is this history, a story line of, many years ago, how incredibly helpful. There are several things like this that I've uncovered, even antihistamine use in multiple sclerosis and in other diseases. Like, it was incredibly helpful. So all of these little things, so what I'm sharing with you is not that boron is the end-all be-all cure for all chronic disease, but it's another tool in the toolbox. It's another thing that helps us to recover. That is something that many of us are deficient in, and we don't even know it. What I found really interesting is we can become deficient in this mineral, and they say that they don't know if it's essential or not, but I suspect it is. The World Health Organization said that it probably is an essential mineral. But when we fertilize our crops, so especially when we do this factory farming type practices, and where there's lots of fertilizer put down, that can actually decrease the amount of boron that the plants are taking up, and then we get less boron in our diet, and then we become deficient in it. And then also our diet, period, like if we're eating a lot of processed foods, they probably are quite deficient in boron. So boron, again, is a natural mineral, and it's found in the earth, and it's also found in our water and in all our plants and our food. And it's readily and easily absorbed. It passes through the body without it doesn't have to be metabolized, and it is excreted out of the body, whatever the body doesn't need. And in certain parts of the world where boron is low in concentration, they've made this connection in science that they've seen that, my gosh, where there is less boron in the soil and in the food, people have a much higher incidence of arthritis and arthritis type inflammatory conditions. So boron, it helps with so many different types of conditions. It helps osteoarthritis. It also helps osteoporosis. So it really helps to improve bone density, helps relieve menopause symptoms. And we know that a lot of times menopause symptoms are caused by these infections, by dysbiosis. Also, it has a protective role against prostate cancer, also in the development of babies inside of us in the womb. But please be careful, like, don't supplement with anything unless you're working with somebody. Like when we're pregnant, we have to be super careful that we don't take too much of anything. But it really does support embryonic development in the right amount. It supports brain function and cognitive performance. So our memory, right, and our not cognitive function as far as memory, retaining things, brain, like less brain fog, things like that. Also, it helps reduce hair loss, and it promotes hair regrowth. It also helps prevent allergies, and we know allergies are connected with parasites. Also, weakness in muscles, stomach and digestive parasites, and also eye infections. It has very strong antifungal properties, so it's really helpful for treating candida, chronic candida infections and other yeast infections. It's been used, like, you can just do a Google search like boron and treatment for malaria, and you'll see that there are different studies, where current ones also, where they're incorporating it into malaria treatments. So it has very strong antiparasitic, anti-malarial, antifungal, and more moderate antibacterial properties. And it's really quite safe. But I do want to talk about the toxicity of it, because whenever I do these events, I don't want you to think, oh my gosh, it's the end all be all, I'm just going to take a bunch of it and then you can get really sick. So we'll talk about if we take too much. Anything, if you take anything that's too much, it's not good for you. So boron has been shown to be really helpful, maybe not a cure for everybody, but just incredibly helpful for many people that have arthritis, also rheumatoid arthritis, juvenile arthritis, lupus. What's so interesting is that these diseases are often, the medication is often like hydroxychloroquine, giving a low maintenance dose of that. And that's an antimalarial drug. And it's just like, I wonder if there's a connection there. But you do have to be careful because I've shared research about when you're treating malaria, you can have a strong Herxheimer reaction. So that's why it's really important to go low and slow if you have these conditions and you're working with a practitioner and you want to incorporate boron into your treatment plan. So go very low and slow. If you ever have a Herx reaction, you always stop and recover. It takes 1 to 3 days. And it's not like it's a dangerous thing, but it's just something that we just don't, there's no benefit in pushing through a Herx reaction. They don't feel good. So that's why you go low and slow. It's also been used for urinary tract infections, and also more recently in brain tumors. So cancer, incredible. And this is not an exhaustive research that I've done on it. So there's probably a lot more benefits for it. So with our students that are ladies and they have their menses, if they have, let's say, or any age, it can be post or pre-menopause, but if they have chronic yeast infections, then, like, for example, they have the white cloudy discharge, itchy at times. Sometimes we can have chronic candida infections vaginally and we don't even know it. We just might have some cloudy discharge, which we shouldn't have during the month. We should just have only, like when we're fertile, we should have just clear mucus. And so if you're getting this kind of cloudy and maybe you're itchy or not, but it's really helpful for treating vaginal yeast thrush, really helpful. So some people use the creams and they find that they don't really work very well. They might use diflucan over the counter, 1 to 3 days, kind of knock it back. But just using boric acid, which you can get at a pharmacy, and you can get them to make it in capsule form. So this was used before all of these fancy yeast creams came out, and it works way better. So for our students, what they'll do is they'll use it for a few days. They'll insert a capsule of boric acid, and that really knocks back the yeast tremendously. And then after that, they will use probiotics. They will go to the health food store and get some probiotics that are appropriate for the vaginal tract, and they will insert those after they've treated the yeast. So it's also good for athlete's foot, probably all kinds of other fungal symptoms also. It has a very strong safety profile. So it is, although it can be toxic if you take a lot of it, but it is quite safe. And it is excreted, like its half-life, so half of it is excreted out of your body within 21 hours. That's the half-life. So it's not all excreted within, like some things like vitamin C, the water-soluble vitamins, they can be done in your body like within 4 hours. But with boron, this mineral, probably about 21 hours, it's its half-life. Acute poisoning of boron in humans starts at 15 to 20 grams for adults. So that's quite a bit, 15 to 20 grams. So like, we're not going to take that, right? That's not reasonable. But I'm telling you this so that people that they're responsible, and you should always work with a practitioner. So everything that I'm sharing with you is for educational purposes. It is not intended to replace the necessary measures of your doctor, your healthcare professional. It's really designed so that you can play that active role with your practitioner. Or if you need support from us, we would love to support you. So 15 to 20 grams of boron for adults could cause acute poisoning. Also 5 to 6 grams for children, and 2 to 3 grams for infants. And the threshold, so the amount for chronic boron toxicity in humans, is not known. So if you take lower amounts and you build it up, they have not really picked up on what that amount would be for it to be chronic toxicity. But I just wanted to give you a few symptoms of toxicity so that if you ever were working with a practitioner and you were taking too much, you would look out for things like irritation or inflammation of the skin, so dermatitis, hair loss, anorexia, and indigestion. That would be at lower doses. And then if you had higher doses of poisoning, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, headache, skin rashes, and also you can have like peeling or shedding of the outer skin, kidney damage, central nervous system stimulation, followed by depression, ataxia, so loss of or poor balance, convulsions, and possible death. So if you take too much Tylenol, you can get really bad adverse effects, right? And it's the same thing with this. But it's incredible when you look at, so in this event that I'm sharing with you right now, I can only talk about certain things. So I can't talk about the really cost-effective sources of this, the history, right, of the doctor who used it to treat his own arthritis. He ended up curing his arthritis with using boron, a different version of boron. And so he used that, and then he started helping other people. Actually, I don't think he was a medical doctor. I think he might have been like a naturopath. But anyhow, so he cured arthritis in himself, and then he was helping many, many other people with it. And he went to the certain companies to see if they would take it over, because there were so many people coming to him, and that was not what he wanted to do, like thousands of people per month taking care of them or producing this, promoting this. And so he ended up going to these big companies saying, hey, will you guys make this for people? It's really helping them a lot. And then that was a very big mistake, because that's what caused it to be shut down. He got a fine, but he did write some peer-reviewed studies, and it never died. It's just kind of gone underground, like a lot of the things that we're using to help us recover, which are super helpful, super cost-effective, and that's probably why they're not allowed, because they're dirt cheap and it's really helpful. So again, I'm not saying that this mineral is going to cure your disease. I'm not saying that at all. But it has antimicrobial properties. It's just super important for health. We're deficient in it. And when you bring it back in at safe amounts, it can really make a difference for a lot of people. So some of the studies, and again, you can look these up yourself if you do a quick Google search, boron as a medicinal ingredient in oral natural health products. That's the government of Canada. Usually they don't do, like they're attacking our natural health products right now. They're trying to shut the whole natural supplement industry down in Canada. And of course, this page they put a little disclaimer on the top that it's an old page and they're not updating it. So I totally get that, because they're really trying to shut down all the natural health products. There's a big battle going on in Canada about that. There's a lot of battles going on in Canada. And then another, organoboron compounds effective antibacterial and antiparasitic agents functionalize boron nanoparticles as potential promising antimalarial agents. And this protist, and it may be different species, it may be malaria, it might be cousins of malaria, it could be cousins of babesia, but that is a really big part in different chronic diseases, especially arthritis, lupus, MS, and etc. Boron-containing antimalarial drug recovery, that's another study. Another study is peptidic boronic acids are potential cell permeable inhibitors of the malaria parasite, and it goes on. Another study, boron chemicals in drug discovery and development, synthesis, and medicinal perspective. These are all most of these are 2021 and 2022 studies. Recent developments in the medicinal chemistry of single boron atom containing compounds. So huge. And this literally took me 5 minutes just to do a quick search. And I'm sure there's a lot more studies. So the key is that, if you're just finding me, what I would do is I would do a little research, go to our website, livediseasefree.com. Make sure to subscribe, because you'll see there you can put your name and email address. Really important, because then you will be notified when we put out our newsletter at the end of the week, and that's where I have all my notes, and that's where this video will be condensed more, and I will be able to share the whole story there. I can't share the whole story here, unfortunately. I wish I could, but I can't. It's really, really significant. And so I just wanted to give you a few updates from our wellness champions. I'd like to share that with you to give you hope to see that there is a better way for you to treat chronic disease by treating the cause, by treating the parasites that cause chronic disease. So I'm going to leave these students anonymous because they are right now working hard in the program, recovering. Some of them are treating, some of them have just started, and I'll try to give you an idea. So this is somebody who has done one treatment cycle, and she is a healthcare professional. We have lots of healthcare professionals that take our program. She shared, I am meeting so many people who are blown away by my progress, and I'm directing them to your website, but they simply think that it's too good to be true. So she's recovering from multiple sclerosis. And we have been so programmed in developed countries that we don't have parasites in developed countries. There's no way unless you've traveled, and nothing could be further from the truth. And so not everybody is going to understand this at the start. Sometimes it takes people several exposures, like, oh, this person got better by treating parasites. Oh, this other person I know. And it's like more and more people are treating parasites. And then they start to see parasite pictures and they're like, oh my gosh. So I was talking to one gentleman today, and he's in Europe. And he's like, I have been researching for 4 years. He's in the UK. And so he's been looking at like almost every study to do with MS with their, I don't know, I can't remember which, like a Royal Society database, kind of probably like the the National Institute of Health in the US. And he's like, I never saw one sentence about parasites causing MS or parasites being involved in multiple sclerosis. Not once. He said, if I would have seen one sentence, I would have gone with it. I would have done some more research. But somehow he said, I found your video. And he's like, what? Parasites? Like, and so he's been suffering for 4 years, searching and searching and searching. And finally, his prayers were answered and he found me. And now he's going to go to work, and now he's going to get his life back, and he's going to have an amazing life. He is I don't want to say too much about him because he's just new, and keep his information private. But he is going to have an amazing life because he still is mobile, and he will be able to treat these parasites, and he will be able to get on with his life. All right, so this one student that I kind of bypassed here. So she said, I feel amazing. So this is the healthcare professional that is recovering from multiple sclerosis. I feel amazing, very minimal, and almost gone is my spinal electric shock. I have no more numbness except for in my hands, which has decreased to tingling. So when it's almost like the circulation is gone, and then when it starts coming back, then it goes from numbness to tingling, and then the tingling goes away. And she said, when I started the Live Disease-Free program, my entire body was numb from the neck down, and I was finding it really hard to breathe, which was scaring me. So that's why I finally decided to reach out to you, Pam. The next student, so that's amazing, and she's just done one treatment cycle. The next student shared, I had a fabulous time at a very special event dinner with a full table in attendance, which means that I had felt so much better I could plan, design, and share this fabulous and very symbolic teaching and meal. We also celebrated 85 years of loving our mama 2 days later, complete with balloons, presents, and lots of family. Wait for it. I both thrived and survived. Only the normal kind of tired. And now I'm ready for some downtime, purely due to all the busy preparations, festivities, and so many people staying at our house. I'm counting that reality as a miracle. But I also knew that it was time to gear down and get refocused on the goal at hand, which is healing. So all she's doing is following the diet, and she's taking an antimicrobial herb because she's getting ready to get the parasite meds. She has to get energy tested and all that. And she's also using the oxidizing agent that I talk about, that I can't share the name here, which you can find on Rumble, Live Disease Free, or just oxygen therapies and treating parasites. I talk about it there. And she's using that oxidative therapy and she's having no issues, no concerns. And she said, I love this stuff. The next student is new and she said, I am doing amazing. I barely have symptoms and I've been following the Live Disease Free diet strictly since I've started the Live Disease Free Academy. So you can find the Live Disease Free diet guidelines on our website, livediseasefree.com, under research. All of the guidelines are there. And it's true that when you join the academy, it's a little bit more detailed and I'm checking your work. I'm making sure that your carbs are low enough. So that's what happens. Like you notice that your symptoms decrease significantly because the inflammation in your body decreases. The parasites are not as active. They're not producing as many poisons because their favorite food is carbohydrates and simple sugars. So as you are decreasing their food, they're more quiet, and then you notice all these symptom improvements. This next student, he has done at least 1 or 2 treatment cycles, I think probably at least a couple, or maybe 1. And he shared, I am treating and I'm tolerating the parasite drugs much better than last month. And he had a lot of, I don't think he has MS, but he had a lot of heart palpitation, a lot of other scary symptoms. And he said, my heart palpitations are much better these past 3 days. So he's using deworming drugs, and that's helping his heart. Isn't that interesting? And perhaps adding in a specific parasite drug, and perhaps also he passed the full moon whenever there was a full moon in the past before he joined the program, he would notice that his heart would be a lot more like racing and just not doing well at all during full moons. And the parasites can be more active during a full moon. So he said the parasites seem to always trigger around a full moon. So his improvements, so his bowel movements are noticeably better. The back pain seems to have decreased, also way less groggy when taking these treatments because we're helping them to make sure they take binders and enough water and things like that. And also, he's been able to gain a few pounds, which is another good sign. So when we treat the parasites, like if we've had this chronic inability to put weight on and we're underweight, when you treat the parasites, you'll notice that you can put weight on again. And he said, I wasn't able to put weight on no matter what I ate in the past. This next student is quite new, so she's just getting ready to treat. And so following the diet and supporting the body. The numbness and tingling around my middle, it has almost gone. Praise God, she said. Also, the dull ache, brain fog is much less this past week. Also, I'm sleeping better 7 to 8 hours each night, and I'm doing well at drinking enough water. I'm still working on the digestive issues. So a lot of our students most of them have constipation, so that she's working on that. And then some have diarrhea. So we do different things for different situations like that. So she said she's going to start doing the enemas, the oxidizing agent enemas right away, which she can start right away. And she said, my physical therapist worked with me walking with a cane this week. I have been only using a walker and occasionally a wheelchair before that. Some days are better than others, but I am headed in the right direction. So like she's been maybe 2 weeks in the program and she's able to start using a cane instead of just using the walker and the wheelchair. That's amazing. And of course, it's up and down a little when we have this parasitic infestation and we're learning the diet. Sometimes we might eat a little bit too many carbs. We're just kind of figuring it out. But we have to treat the parasites too. But this is pretty amazing in just a couple of weeks. I don't even think she's been in it for 3 weeks. And it's so encouraging to find that I can use a cane sometimes, especially when I'm feeling strongest. So much more to come for her. And then another student that just joined last week, she said, my success is way less inflammation. So she's noticing. And so as a coach, I will say to her, okay, what do you mean by that? Like, what specifically, like which symptoms have specifically improved? Because it's true that her symptoms have improved, less inflammation, but I want to know, is it your balance? Is it less neuropathy? Is it less spasticity? Is it you're sleeping better at night? Is it less pain? What is it specifically? Because that's how I help assess them. So she said, I've been eating pretty well, but cutting back on the carbs and sugars. She has a weakness for cheese and tortillas, and this week she's giving up coffee. So she hasn't even given up caffeine yet, and that is a really big, important part because caffeine will stimulate the parasites, and we don't want them stimulated. We want them quiet. The last student here is somebody that is so dear to my heart. She has a lot of disability from MS, and she has family that love her, but sometimes her families, they don't believe in this. They just really believe in the medications. And so she's been going it alone, and she just couldn't tolerate the parasite drugs at the full doses, but she is consistently, it's kind of like the hare and the tortoise. And it doesn't matter if you go quickly or slowly. What matters is if you do your best and you win the race at the end. And so she just keeps working away, and she's increasing the amount of the parasite drugs very slowly over a few months. And she continues every week to improve and feel stronger. So she said, I continue to feel stronger and I have more balance. I'm sleeping 7+ hours per night, having daily bowel movements. And she's able to increase the parasite drugs slowly, which is helping her to treat more effectively. Thank you for all the research, sharing, and guidance. Still working at recovering. Yes. And I always say, the greater the challenge, the sweeter the victory. I'm going to go to a couple of your questions. So, King, what are servings, etc., and how much? So I'm wondering, are you talking about food, or are you talking about supplements? I'm not sure. Maybe you can type that in the question box. So with the diet, with the Live Disease-Free diet, what we're doing is we are working up to 9 to 13 servings of vegetables per day. So, and they're low-carb vegetables. You'll find the guidelines, the cheat sheet under research under livediseasefree.com. Let's see, I don't see it here. Okay, so that is that. And then with respect to boron, this talk is for educational purposes, so I don't want to give amounts, because then if I give an amount and then somebody is less weight or overweight, or they have other issues, like, that's not my job. My job is not to treat you, to diagnose you. My job is to point you in the right direction. If you need support, then we're working together. Then I can help you more. But you can find, the daily recommended amounts for boron. Also go to our website on Friday. So on Friday, usually later in the day, our newsletter is published, and there you will find a lot more details about, so you can go deeper into the topic of boron, how helpful it is, and then you can talk to your practitioner and make sure to use it safely. Absolutely. But I think for a lot of you, it's going to be very helpful. David, have you ever tried diatomaceous earth? Yes, that's another one that's helpful. So diatomaceous earth, it's like, I think it's the exoskeleton of very small, things that are in the ocean, and they're ground up. And so they will basically, the parasites will eat them and it'll destroy their digestive tract. And so it can be helpful too. That's another thing that you can layer. You can't use that for long periods of time, but you can use it safely for shorter periods of time. It's another tool in the toolbox to help you treat. You want to use a layering of therapies. Michael, I have done a diluted boron drink here and there. What application is recommended? I can't talk about it here, but I'm going to give you the resources on our newsletter, all right? Just because I literally will get censored, shut down if I talk about it here. Hi, James. You're very, very welcome. Thanks for your kind words. And I just want to thank you guys all for your very kind words. It means a lot to me. This is why I do this. I can't stand that people are suffering. I can't stand that this is not going mainstream. And one way you can help is to spread the word is by just sharing this video with different groups, liking it, subscribing to our channels. That helps the algorithms to push it out to more people. The more people that, like that poor gentleman today that I talked to, that 4 years that he never had one inkling that parasites caused MS. If he would have known in the first year, he would have been treating back then, and he's lost 4 years of his life. So we want to help people get help early. and we want this to go mainstream. So Patty, does Lyme and MS go hand in hand? You're very welcome. So Lyme is probably one of a more significant parasite. So when we say Lyme, there's usually several microbes that travel together. They're called the Lyme co-infections. Borrelia is one, Bartonella, Babesia, Ehrlichia. There's a whole bunch of them, Mycoplasma, a bunch that travel together. So if you're talking about Borrelia, if you go onto our website, you'll see that there's over 100 years of research linking a spirochete bacteria like Borrelia to multiple sclerosis. Even on the MS website, the MS Society website, they're like, well, MS and Lyme disease have very similar symptoms. And when you're doing testing, the test results are very similar, whether it's MRI or lumbar puncture, but they're not the same. So the people have similar symptoms and the test results are very similar, but they're not the same. Because people that have Lyme disease, if they take antibiotics early enough, it can help. But for people that have multiple sclerosis, if they use antibiotics, it doesn't really help. And I did a whole talk on that. You'll find an article on our website, MS and Lyme disease. Make sure to go over that. It's just a joke. But is it the main infection from all the hundreds of students we've worked with? I don't believe so. It definitely can be involved and it definitely needs to be knocked back. But if you have larger worms, even the small filarial worms that are infected with Borrelia, then if you just keep treating Lyme, you're never going to get better because those worms will keep infecting you with Borrelia. So we always want to treat large to small. We want to treat large parasites first and then the small ones and do it in several cycles until you're symptom free. But yes, there is a huge connection between the Lyme infections and multiple sclerosis, and even Babesia is probably even more so for a lot of people that have MS. Hi, Ricky. I don't know why that would be, because on my end it looks like the sound is good. So there's no one else. Sounds okay for me. Okay. I think that it's fine. I've got my volume cranked up and I'm pretty sure that it's fine. So let's see here. Marco, I agree. But when you look, the most diseases are in the developed countries. And isn't that interesting? Where do they treat parasites? They don't treat parasites in the developed countries. They treat parasites in the countries that are not as developed, right? And I don't want to be disrespectful. That's just the way that it is. That's unfortunately how it is. Wanda, we're getting sicker with more drugs from pharma. Natural is best. Yes, that is true, Wanda, but at this point in time, we have not been able to recover only with herbs. We will keep trying. We would love to just only use herbs, but we have found the parasite drugs are really helpful. A lot of our students have these intestinal flukes, which can be 3 to 5 inches long. They have roundworms, which are over 2 feet long. I have passed both. So the herbs just never worked well enough. They never got those bigger parasites out. And boy, when you get them out of you, you feel like a different person. So they all definitely play a role. And yes, but with the parasite drugs, you're using them for short periods of time, 14 days on, and then you're off for at least 14 days or longer. And you're just doing a few treatment cycles. You're treating the cause. You're not using it as a disease-modifying immunosuppressive maintenance drug that you take for the rest of your life, that you suppress your immune system with, which makes you weaker, where you have more diseases in time. Is coconut milk okay on the diet? No, we would not have coconut milk because it's really challenging to get the carbs down low enough, down to 30 total grams of carbs per day. You can use coconut fat, that will work, but we would avoid any kind of like coconut milk, rice milk, soy milk. We would avoid all of them because it's just going to give you carbohydrates and not a lot of nutrition. So Ricky, as per the Walls protocol, coconut milk, so long as it is low sugar version is okay. there's a big difference between the Walls protocol and our protocol. So our protocol is we're following a diet that is geared around what's going on in our body. So when we're infested with parasites, I've shown you the science that says that their favorite source of energy is glucose. So we want to decrease that even farther than paleo. And then you'll have more symptom improvements. You'll tolerate the parasite drugs a lot better when you do that. Oh, just a sec. Yeah, I've got it plugged in there. So that's why it's so important to go lower carb than with just the paleo diet. And then I'm very grateful that she's getting people to change their diet and going lower carb and feeling a little better. But we don't recommend a bunch of supplements. And I know she does. She recommends a ton of supplements. And we have not found that to be helpful. And it can actually feed the parasites. And then thirdly, she recommends a lot of like electrical devices for stimulation, etc. And we're focused on treating the cause, which is parasites. And she unfortunately believes there's like a study or two showing that if you give people a certain worm, that what it does, it suppresses your immune system. And so then it's kind of like taking an immunosuppressive drug, maybe like prednisone or something, and you have less symptoms potentially. But these people that have these worms, they're like, get them out of me. I have so much stomach pain after a while. And do you want to suppress your immune system or do you want to treat the parasites? That's the key. So unfortunately, it's kind of a dead end going in that direction. Like you can change your diet and start to feel a little better, but you'll still live with disease. She also is not very negative against the MS drugs. I am only because I believe that it's hijacking, and it's hijacking our standard of care for MS, and we're not allowed to actually research, like all of the panel, the experts that have created this McDonald criteria. They're heavily funded by the pharmaceutical companies that are selling these MS drugs. So it's like gridlocked. We're not moving forward. They're not interested in looking at parasites. They're not interested at all. They're like, no, we're good. And it's like, well, we're not good. So things have to change. Can I use small amounts of almond milk? That's again, if you follow our diet, the Live Disease-Free diet, but you add in a little bit of extra nuts or avocados or coconut milk or almond milk, you'll go, this diet doesn't work for me. And that's because your carbs are just a little too high. And it doesn't take much. It can even be sugar and bacon. So what you want to do is you want to learn how to get your carbs down to 30, like closer to 30 total grams of carbs. It's life-changing for you when you do that. So no, almond milk is not fine with the Live Disease-Free diet. In the future, when you've recovered, it is fine, but not when you're getting ready to treat and treating. Hi, Stephen. You contacted us today. Awesome. Well, I hope to support you in the future. And David, the sound was intermittent in the beginning. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what that is. Hopefully it's not on my end. I am hardwired in, so I should have pretty consistent sound. A couple more and then I'll let you guys go. Well, I'm looking forward to working with you. Awesome. And Ricky, try increasing the gain via the sound volume. Let's see here. Testing. I don't know if that makes a difference. I'll look into it. Okay, last one here that I'm going to share and let you guys go. So regarding the meds for bladder, are you aware of a natural alternative for MS bladder issues? So number one, low carb. The Live Disease-Free diet is a lot better. It's the most helpful thing for your bladder. And I found that out by going on different forums. And on those forums, I found that people that had bladder issues, they didn't have MS, but they had really urgency and recurrent bladder infections, going low carb is the most helpful. So with our students following the Live Disease-Free diet, when they get their carbs down to about between 30 and 40, closer to 30 total grams of carbs, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not getting up 6 times in the night. I might get up once throughout the night. And that can happen within less than 2 weeks. There's also cistus tea. So you can look for the cistus herb, cistus, cistus herb, and you can make your own tea. You can reuse the leaves, like you can make a couple, at least 2 or 3 cups out of one. If you take the leaves and put it in a little tea bag holder. And so you can drink 4 to 6 cups of that per day. Cranberry, juniper extract, so that is UTI drops. Those kind of things are helpful. So it's infection in your bladder. Sometimes it's schistosomiasis, which are blood flukes. Sometimes it's Lyme. It could be fungus. It can be other infections, but it's infection in the bladder, kidney area that's causing that. Going low carb is the first step, and it can make night and day difference. But remember that when you have the bladder issues like that, you've probably got a huge amount of parasites in your intestines. And so that's the base camp of the problem. And that's where most of your immune system is located also. So you really want to clear the parasites out of as much, like decrease the burden of parasites in your intestines as much as possible. That's going to also help your bladder. It's all connected, because then your immune system has a little bit of relief. All right, I'm going to let you guys go. We've gone through lots of questions. So if you are new to all of this, just like that one gentleman I spoke to today, and if you're like, I cannot believe this, parasites, like I've never heard this before. And if you're skeptical, that's why I have the livediseasefree.com website. Go to our blogs and read up on the topics that are of interest to you. It'll blow your mind. You can see parasite pictures. You'll understand the whole process of chronic disease. It's not autoimmune. Your immune system is fine. You need to protect it. You need to take care of it, not destroy it. And then when you are at that place where you're like, okay, I need a plan. I don't have a practitioner that will help me. You can reach out by watching my masterclass training, or even just watch it. You'll get all the steps we use to recover. And then if you want to get support, or even chat with me to make sure that it's right fit for you, then watch the Coachathon. You'll get an email with a Coachathon that goes through the academy in great detail. And then you'll have better questions for me, and then I'll meet with you and we'll chat to make sure it's a good fit for you. And I would be honored to support you and help you on your journey back to taking your health and your life back. So again, if you want to help spread the word, if you want to make a difference, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Also, if you enjoy what I share with you. So I hope you have a wonderful week. Take care and bye-bye for now.